Hi, guys. Today, we speak with the owner operator of Omaha Kung Fu Academy. He's been studying the Hunggar and Wing Chun styles for the last 20 years and continues to promote Asian culture through offering classes in traditional lion dance. In addition to Hung Kyun and Wing Chun, he has learned a bit of Choy Lee Fut, Bak Sil Lum, American Kempo, Taekwondo, and karate to form a more widened outlook towards the martial arts. He has also competed in modern wushu at the collegiate level at the University of Arizona. Please welcome Sifu Jacob Stiver. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I want to go get straight into this interview. So let's go into the first question. How did you get started into the martial arts, Sifu?
Initially, as a little kid, I was very hyperactive. So they got me into American Kempo when I was 6, and I kind of did it off and on. Wherever we moved to, because my family were military, wherever I moved to, I just, whatever martial art was available for kids on base, I would take that, and it kind of kept me out of mischief because I wasn't good at sports too. So,
Right. And so it moved on. So American Kempo was the first style. And then you moved on to where from there?
yeah, so American Kempo, Taekwondo, karate, and then I got back into martial arts as an adult. My siblings were taking Kung Fu, and I had heard about it, knew about it. I grew up watching Kung Fu movies, but I tried it, and I've been hooked ever since. And that was 2001. I started with Northern Praying Mantis, then Wing Chun, then I did Modern Wushu, and then back to Hongga Wing Chun.
So when you started Wing Chun, was it with the same Sifu or was that different?
Actually, it was with my Sifu's Sifu. So actually, my Qigong, technically, I trained with him for shy of a year, but good 6-8 months with Grandmaster Augustine Fong. And then when I went to go train Hongga with Sifu Lopez, I discovered he also taught the Wing Chun, and he was insistent that I train both systems. He was absolutely adamant about that. And he was one of Grandmaster Fong's top students. So I was in the same family. I didn't have to like unlearn or relearn anything. I just continued the Wing Chun alongside the Hongga. So it worked out pretty well.
Okay. So you were actually with your Qigong first, and then after his student, your Sifu, right?
Yes, sir.
So how, if you don't mind me asking, like, is there a story behind that?
No,
Like
it's more logistics. I was going back to school at the time too. To me, Kung Fu helped me get my life back on track because I had 2 failed attempts to go to college. I was working a job that I wasn't happy with. I was out of shape. I got into Kung Fu, and that got me, getting better health. I started going back to school. I was taking some classes at Master Fong's school, but the classes he actually taught directly often conflicted with my school schedule because I was going to community college in the evenings and I was working during the day. So I was looking from some of his assistant instructors who were junior to the guy I ended up finishing the system with. So I go in there, and initially I was in my early 20s. Like Wing Chun it didn't capture my imagination the way other styles had. I had friends who were doing Modern Wushu at the U of A. I was in the process of transferring over there anyways. And they're like, yeah, man, you need to try this stuff. It's super cool. And I got hooked on that. That was in the Nanchuan division, which ended up getting me interested in Hongga. And I found out that all these movies I grew up watching were all Hongga people in the shot of those films. And then I found Sifu Lopez right by where I was living, started training Hongga. And he's like, by the way, you got to do the Wing Chun. And it was still Augustine Fong's Wing Chun, the Hoka Ming lineage Wing Chun. So it's more like just like circumstance and scheduling more than anything else.
Logistics is almost everything in life, right?
Yes.
All right. So it actually leads me to my next question, right? Seeing as how you do have that dual training in Wing Chun and Hongga, could you name like just a couple similarities and differences between the styles, if any?
Well, this kind of the secret of Wing Chun is all of Wing Chun exists within Hongga. And you take the forms side by side, go through the 3 Wing Chun hand sets, you'll find the majority of the techniques appear in some way, shape, or form in the Hong Ga pillar sets. The Wing Chun is snake and crane. Hong Ga is all 5 animals with a tiger and crane focus, but the snake and crane element, the close range, bridging, the Yiji Kung Yang Ma, those are all there. It's just the Wing Chun refines an element that Hong Ga people tend to put on the back burner. That makes any sense. I guess one way Sifu insisted on both is the Wing Chun puts the Hong Ga close range techniques into context. And then the Hong Ga, for the Wing Chun side, improves power generation and gives you a bigger toolkit. But again, the systems are I mean, it's a Venn diagram, but the Wing Chun almost is like a bigger circle is the Hong Ga, and the Wing Chun is a smaller circle within it. And some Wing Chun people don't like to hear that. It sounds kind of chauvinistic on our part. But again, if you look at it, you can go through. And when my Sifu started learning Hong Ga from Grandmaster Chu, after he's already teaching Wing Chun, Sigong Chu actually went through and showed him each movement from each Wing Chun form, and then showed him in which Hong Ga set you could find it. And there'd be some variations. I mean, it's different flavor, a different approach to it, but it's still intrinsically the same techniques, like Bong Sao, Tan. They might call it something else, but it's tomato type of stuff. It's still the same. Is tomato a vegetable or fruit? It's still the same food, but if you pronounce it a little bit differently, it's still the same thing. But,
okay. I find that the same could be said in terms for Choy Lee Fut as well as with Wing Chun, because a lot of the techniques, because I was a student of the Lee Kun Hung lineage of Choy Lee Fut.
Excellent.
And a lot of our techniques, while I was going to school there, I would go into photos of Chu Chi Ling, Yo Sigong, in movies, and I pick out, and I'm like, it's kind of like what I'm doing. Okay. So now, in your opinion, what is the hardest part of learning Kung Fu?
I would say the repetition. It's the hardest part and the secret to it, in my opinion. This goes back to that saying that Bruce Lee's attributed to it, but I think it predates him, is fear not the man who's practiced 1,000 kicks, fear the man who's practiced one kick 1,000 times. Learning the form or learning the technique doesn't mean you have it. And again, I've worked as a bouncer and security guard off and on since the recession. My current job is one of my least scary jobs in the last 10 years. I put hands on people for a living. Your techniques have to happen naturally. They have to come out. You don't have time to think about it, especially if you're in a fight, like where you're in a sparring match. You can stand back from your opponent and gauge what he's going to do and have a strategy. If someone tries to sucker punch you in a dark bar, or someone grabs a hold of you in the parking lot of a building or a business, you don't have time to devise a strategy. Your Kung Fu just comes out. And the way for that to happen is you have to practice everything over and over and over again for years. It has to become natural. And the only way for that to become natural is endless repetition.
The second part to the question now is, how would you be able to keep it relevant or accessible, would you say?
You're looking at it as skill sets. I mean, the forms are fun. I enjoy forms work. Again, I grew up watching Chicago. There's Kung Fu movies. The opening sequence where they do a form in the sound studio or sound stage, favorite part of the movie. But you have to take your techniques apart and then show people how they work in a modern context. So a lot of things with the Wing Chun, for instance, you have the center line guard. You're assuming people are fighting also center line guard with a focus on punching to the body. Modern karate, they have to adjust because old karate kata, they're punching to the body, because if you punch face, you break your hand. You break your hand, you can't work, you can't eat. 21st century, everybody punches the face, everybody has a square guard. Most people fight left leg lead. Northern Kung Fu, or in the Choy Fut, again, I also train the Lee Kun Hung lineage Choy Fut. The right leg lead in the forms assumes the other guy's fighting right leg lead as well. You have to adapt that to the 21st century when everyone's fighting left hand lead, right hand rear. You have to take your forms and flip them. You have to take your drills and go from fighting a centerline guard stratagem to fighting a squared up, like a boxing guard or MMA guard. Like, okay, Wing Chun guys, they get really good at fighting other Wing Chun guys. That's a problem because you don't often run into another Wing Chun guy in a bar fight. It's somebody who learned how to fight by watching boxing on TV, or he went to an MMA gym for 6 months, or he watches UFC online when he's bored. And they're going to fight like that. You have to adapt your techniques to deal with that kind of opponent to keep it relevant in a self-defense situation. Yeah, I mean, as far as keeping relevant for younger people from a personal cultivation, I think like video games tell me you're leveling up. You gotta earn some XP there to level up. So they run their forms extra. I'm like, let's say you gotta grind out some XP, but it puts it in context that makes sense to somebody who grew up playing, video games and RPGs. So,
funny enough, you and I are the same age, and I've in terms of keeping it relevant, that's funny. I've never even thought of relating it to video games and stuff like that. Keep it more relevant for a younger generation.
it helps. My girlfriend's got teenagers, so it's how I connect with them. Is I put it and I make jokes about video games, and then I somehow use it to turn it into, by the way, do your homework, or it's your turn to do dishes. But I put it in the context of like Skyrim, which is a game they've been playing for a decade now. But it helps. You find that the kind of mixed code switching. You find the language that they speak in, and you speak to them in that context.
I did an interview with a Qigong teacher by the name of Reese the Flame. And one of the things that he was talking about with making it more accessible to younger generations and so on like that, you came up with, you say video games, and he was actually saying anime.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Right? Make everything more relatable through anime. And the thing about it is, I think it's around 24, 25.
Oh, right on.
So, I mean, I guess you hear it from the goat's mouth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you had the opportunity to only teach one thing to the new generation, right? Whether it be philosophy or technique, right? It'd be your choice, right? What would it be?
Like I said, the philosophy that there's one shortcut in Kung Fu, and that's add a repetition. That's the only faster way to learn Kung Fu is to train more. Like, don't just go to class twice a week. Don't just practice in class. The way to train Kung Fu, the way to learn it, is every day. Set aside an hour every day. You have an hour to spare somewhere. Run your forms. Run your drills. Do your calisthenics. The only thing that's going to get you further in your Kung Fu training is, I say, grinding out that XP. Because you've got to go in there and put the time in and grind it out. There's no way around that. Otherwise, you'll spend eternity on that first 2 or 3 forms in your system, and you'll never get anywhere. You'll get discouraged. You'll quit. So I think that I heard from Gordon Liu in an interview once, is if you ignore your Kung Fu for a day, it ignores you for 2 days. Or the idea that it's like paddling a boat upstream. If you're paddling a boat upstream, if you stop, you don't pick back up where you left. You go back down the stream a little bit. So again, any day you take off from your Kung Fu, it's a day that's lost training time. It's also your momentum starts to dip. So practice outside of class. Practice, train.
That's an awesome answer.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
I like that quote from Gordon Liu. That's a cool quote right there. That's a cool quote. So, how do people contact you?
Okay, easiest way to find me is go on Instagram, look up Omaha Kung Fu, and shoot me a message. I respond pretty quickly. Where you'd find me on my personal, it's just Jacob Stiver on Instagram. Or you follow me on TikTok, same name. But Omaha Kung Fu on Instagram will get you right to me.
Information for Sifu Jacob Stiver will be in the description below. Also in the description below will be a link for FeiYue Shoes. Get the latest styles for the best prices, and the best deals as well. All at FeiYue Shoes. Click the link and get yours right now. Sifu Stiver, I want to thank you very much for the time that you've taken to speak with me today, sir.
Oh, thank you, Sifu. I appreciate it.